Hey everyone, welcome to this video of me looking at the Epic Tarot with you. So today we are doing something fancy. We are filming with two cameras so that you guys can also see this footage of the close-ups. I've been wanting this deck for a long time actually, and today I just want to have a little bit of a chill roundup of it and a chill walkthrough. I'm gonna try not to look too closely at all of the cards because I know I will love all of them. So if we look at all 78, that is going to take forever. But we are going to look at quite a few of them, look at the symbolism, get a tea if you want to. This might take a little bit, as you can see in the timestamp. And I will also link some of my other walkthroughs below. Usually if I do deck walkthroughs, I like to look at the deck first and then kind of like show what is in it with me already having reviewed it. But this time around, I want to just be blind to the cards. I know some of them already from the internet. That's how I know I'm going to love this deck, but I don't know that many of them. So let us get started. Here we go. The backs, I love them definitely. We also have a little booklet that unfortunately I already damaged a little bit. Yeah, it's funny. It's a little black book instead of a little white book. It just has the card meanings very shortly, very briefly in a bunch of languages, so not that much. And yes, I almost shuffled it now. That would have been stupid. So yeah, the box isn't very sturdy. It's just a normal box. And we are going to start looking at this now. So, Riccardo Minetti, artwork by Paolo Martinello. This is what the cover card looks like, the Epic Tarot. What does that say? Yeah, and if some god shall wreck me in the wine dark deep, even so I will endure, for already have I suffered full much, and much have I toiled in perils of waves and war. Let this be added to the tale of those. That is such a cool quote, honestly. And I feel like it fits really well with the deck because this one has kind of this fantasy vibe to it, which is why I dig it so much. So we're going to, let me see, how can we do this? We're going to start out with the Fool, obviously. I'm just going to go through them and probably when something comes to my mind, I will say it. So what we have here, very interestingly, is the symbolism of the snake and the apple. Now, we don't always have this with a Fool. You know, usually it's a person going over a cliff and being stopped by a dog, sort of. Whereas this guy has an apple and a snake curling around his wrist, and he has this growth on the back of his head, I suppose, that kind of looks like there is a spider there. It's very crazy, but I like it. Then, as the magician, we have someone who looks like he has a mandragora on his belt, and there is also a deer in the background and a lion in the background. So that's a quite interesting card as well. I feel like it has this very majestic vibe to it, so I like that. Oh, I also have to tell you guys why I bought this deck. That's going to be fun, so stick around for that. Then with the card number 2, we have the High Priestess. Very interesting High Priestess because I feel like she's dressed in a very everyday, casual way, if you know what I mean. Whereas usually we get more, you know, advanced priestess looking women, and she kind of just looks like a witch who's doing her own thing in her own little ice cave or something like that. I really like that actually. With 3, we have the Empress. She is pregnant in this one, which I know not everyone is fond of, but I think it's a beautiful picture. There are swans there, swan chicklets, and also one other kind of bird, and we have butterflies, which I think is interesting because usually butterflies, I think in the Shadowscapes tarot, the Empress card has butterflies, doesn't it? I think. So that's interesting. Now 4, we have as well the Emperor, another spidery creature, and he actually looks like he is a lion or something, or a tiger. So he's not quite human. Now what I like about this card is though that he's making fire. It's a very stark contrast to the High Priestess, who is sort of in this ice cave, and then you have the Emperor being on a fire landscape with lava in the background. What I think is interesting is that, yeah, he makes fire with like stones, so it has this initiatory element. Then we have the Hierophant. Let's look at him. He seems to be in communion with the spirits of these trees, which I quite like. And then you have these 2 fingers touching each other, and he's drawing on them. That's a very interesting image. I'm not sure what to make of that. I'd have to think about it more. Then we have the Lovers. My God, we need to censor this one for YouTube. I'm kidding. I think it's not that bad, hopefully. So, yeah. I never noticed that there's a huge face under their bed, or their, you know, it's not really a bed, their altar. So I like that this has a very ceremonious aspect to it. You also have these statues of people standing in the background. So it's almost like a ceremony is being conducted. Then we have the Chariot, which, you guys, this is my favorite Chariot card. And that says a lot, because my soul card is the Chariot, and I never find chariots that I actually like, because I'm not a fan of the whole wagon imagery. Sometimes it's cars. I'm not a fan of either of those, but this card I'm very excited about because it feels so cool. You have 2 people drawing the Chariot. One seems to be a woman, one seems to be a man, at least judging by the breast that is right here. But then again, I feel like they are much more, you know, nebulous. Their legs look like horse legs, really cool. And then you have this statue up here, and you have the sun and the moon, and it's just all coming together. This whole idea of yin and yang, and this idea of bringing together opposites, and yeah, just aligning everything and achieving your goals that way. Then we have the Strength card, absolutely brilliant in my opinion. That we have this person who is unafraid of being attacked by a bear and holds a mirror up to the bear as if it was a shield. And I think that is a wonderful metaphor for shadow work as well. If we are not afraid of our shadows or of our past and of our issues, but rather hold a mirror to them, that gives us power. It's that idea of reflection giving you agency, essentially. Then with 9, we have the Hermit. Let me look at this guy closer. Oh, he looks like a beggar. So this definitely has, you know, he's actually in the same ice cave as the High Priestess, interestingly. But this definitely has the feeling of, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say a beggar, you know? And that's not always the case with the Hermit. He's usually a recluse who just does his own thing, but in this case, he's like approaching us with a plate. I mean, he could also be offering us a plate of soup, I suppose. I can't quite tell, but he looks like a beggar with his clothing. So next we have the Wheel of Fortune. Interesting depiction. I can't quite make sense of it at the moment, so let me know what you think. I'm trying to go through these a little bit more. Now, I love this one, Justice. This is actually one of the cards why I bought the deck, because it is just so cool, I think, to have this immense statue that everyone is looking up to, because the little people in the front, they are just trying to understand what is going on with this judgment statue. I know it's not the judgment card, but you know, she looks like she's judging people or serving justice. So I really like that. The Hanged Man is actually a woman in this, curled around by a snake. So we have this idea of insight. I quite enjoyed that. Then we have the Death card. Very cool with a panther, a man riding a panther. He looks quite sad himself. Very interesting card. I will have to think about that. Temperance. I don't think I've ever seen this card from this deck. That's an interesting one. Straight off the bat, she kind of makes me think of Persephone. In the sense that, you know, she is surrounded by flowers, she's wearing a white dress, and she sort of has that brown hair that we associate with Greek women a little bit curly. So I really like the atmosphere that this card has. Now, this guy looks like the Emperor, doesn't he? But yes, it's the Devil card. We have big wings, we have hooves for feet. Nice Devil card, not much to say there. Then we have the Tower, and this looks like a magician. No, it's like someone giving the order to destroy something, and here we have a huge eye from a broken statue. How cool is that? I'm going to have to look at that as well. And we have the Star, 17. A beautiful flower blooming, a woman coming in. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to move on so we get through 78 cards. This always happens. I do a walkthrough and the first 10 cards, I talk about them forever. And then I'm like, oh man, I should probably hurry up a bit. So where are we at? 18, the moon. And once again, we have the idea of the mirror here. And her face is veiled as well. An interesting symbol for the mystical aspect of the moon, for the unseeing, mysterious aspect of the moon. Then we have 19, the sun. 20, judgment. A huge statue of someone who is playing the flute like Pan. And a family. So we don't so much have this idea of ascension and of moving on to a higher purpose, but it is a quite peaceful scene almost. And then we have 21, the world, a woman surrounded by mythical creatures. We have a griffin, a dragon, a unicorn, and a phoenix. Oh, and you know what? I know what this means, because the court cards, I believe, in this deck are these 4 mythical creatures. They aren't people, I believe, but rather they are represented by these 4. So we are going to see that in just a minute. Now let's move through the cups. Ace of Cups. Interesting eyes she has. The overflowing cup, classic. Then we have the 2 of Cups. I like that this sort of has also representation of different nationalities and different styles. I quite enjoy that. A lot of it does feel Asian though. Like, it's not an anime tarot, but the style sometimes feels a little bit anime-esque. 3 of Cups. This is a very magical card. Not so much like social fun, but more like, oh, we're doing a fucking ritual, you know? Then we have the 4 of Cups. A sad person and a monkey drinking from one of the cups. Where's the other 3? I guess they just aren't in the card. Okay. Then, yeah, oh, it's one of those decks that does that. I haven't had a deck in a long time, I feel, that doesn't have the exact amount of that suit in the card. You know, this 5 of Cups does not have 5 cups. This is a guy filling his cup from an ice hole. I think it's interesting that the cup is impossible to stand up. It doesn't have a bottom to stand on. Very interesting. 6 of Cups. They're kind of childishly fighting over the cup. That is an interesting one as well. 7 of Cups, not wanting to choose, staying blind. 8 of Cups. This is like a person remembering a warrior spirit. Let me look at that closely. Oh no, it looks like herself actually. Wow, I love this 8 of Cups. Damn, okay, look at this. So I think what is happening is that she is lounging and resting, but she is looking back towards her past Or maybe this could also be a future that she wishes for. So either she used to be a soldier and is looking back on that time, or she wants to be a soldier and is kind of dreaming of being that rather than lazing about. Or she already did her dues and is resting now. Then we have the Nine of Cups, a heavily pierced man who's drinking kind of the last sips from a cup. Interesting. Usually the Nine of Cups is a lot more about abundance and about already having everything you need and enjoying the gifts of the universe. So it's quite different. Here we have the Ten of Cups, and here we also have the representations. We have the phoenix, we have the griffin, the unicorn, and the dragon, and some children playing. And here we go. I see. Yeah, let me just get all of these at the same time so that we can take a good look at them and understand this. So we have the page being represented by the unicorn, we have the knight being represented by the griffin, we have the queen as the phoenix, and we have the dragon as the king. Now, obviously, the fact that I say it like this has to do with the fact that I assume the order is page, knight, queen, king, but I think what this deck really wants from you is that you don't read it that way. So you less think about it as like the page being lower than the king and the queen, or the knight being higher than the page, but more about the different energies of mythical creatures. You know, with the unicorn, you have this idea of innocence, this idea of taking a fresh mindset to something, and at the same time taking a magical mindset. With the griffin, I would have to think about this. What do you guys think about that? You know, with the phoenix, obviously, you have this idea and symbolism of rebirth. And with the dragon, we often have a symbolism of hoarding things, keeping treasures. That is quite interesting as well. So yeah, those are those four for the cups. Now, let's move on to, I guess this is the discs. Yeah, they're like golden orbs. Ace of discs, Two of discs, Three of discs. Interesting, cooperation. They're just creating a big disc. Or, well, I guess it's more orbs, like it's almost nuggets, you know? I think it's quite interesting that we have these golden nuggets here. And I like it because it sort of seems like it is a better representation of treasure. Because I like to read the discs not just as physical treasure, but also as spiritual or mental treasure. Six of discs. And I think that comes across very well in these cards. Wow, this one is interesting. A woman and a big giant, putting her in there. I feel like if I had spent some time with this deck, I could give you better, incredibly metaphorical and symbolical explanations for all of this right now, but I have not. This is the first time I'm seeing a lot of these cards, so I'm really excited about this actually. Eight of discs. A man combing a woman's hair and another man harvesting something. Now that feels highly, highly metaphorical. I love that. You know, the Eight of Discs is the idea of doing work diligently and perfecting your craft. And I quite like that. Perfecting the craft of taking care of a woman. How about that? Nine of Discs. Interesting. Usually this is a woman strolling through her garden, and here she is just sort of, you know, playing with a tree. Why not? 10 of discs. Now let me look closely. Yes, once again, this has all the representations. The phoenix is up here and the other three mythical creatures are in the background, very small. And we have this grandfather explaining a little child something. So we have this idea of generational wisdom and generational legacy that the Ten of Discs often has. So let's look again at the court cards all at once. So yeah, that is the structure of the court cards. Unicorns first, then griffins, then phoenix, and then the dragon. Quite nice, I think. I will have to look at these again in detail later. So here we have books. Let me think, what is this? Aha, it's the wands. That is interesting now. So the wands are actually books in this. And here we have this element of sci-fi. It's a robot hand and a human hand. Wow. Two of wands, a man trying to see where he wants to invest his time. Very fitting. I feel like we're kind of getting a Middle Eastern vibe with this suit, interestingly. And then Four of Wands. I'd have to think about this one. I wonder if this one is also sort of related to the Thoth Tarot. I'm going to look at the... Let me actually, just for fun, read the Four of Wands explanation from the little white book that we have here. Da-da-da. Chalices, pentacles, wands, or books. Here we go. So the Four. The book abandoned. Creativity, ideas, and projects bring so much energy to life. It is easy to get addicted to constant consuming. For now, though, just savor the experience without rushing to the next thing. Now that makes sense because it is really about appreciating your progress, the Four of Wands, and appreciating where you are, celebrating your efforts, essentially. So that fits. Then we have the Five of Wands, which is usually a very combative card. Let me take a closer look at this. Jesus, it's like robots. And they're trying to take away her book. So I feel like maybe this is sort of the dichotomy between human knowledge versus whatever comes after us, AI. Then we have the Six of Wands. Another interesting one. I'm going to have to think about this. We have a mythical creature here. Seven of Wands. Another robot. I'm digging this robot idea. Eight of Wands. Uncontrollable energy. Someone playing a little bit too much with his book. Nine of Wands. Wow. Huge robot. Why not? 10 of Wands. Also, we don't really have this idea of overburdening yourself here. These images are really interesting. Here we have the court cards. Unicorn, Griffin, Phoenix, and Dragon. By the way, I'm going to link my series about court cards again. This makes me wonder how the court cards actually relate to these. Because, you know, the pages are earth element, the knights are fire element, the queens are water element, and the kings are air element. Which air and dragon, that fits. Water and phoenix, not really. Fire and griffin, not really. And then the unicorn and earth, I guess that works as well. So it's a little bit all over the place. But yeah, let's look at the swords. Ace of Swords. That looks a bit silly, doesn't it? It kind of looks like a toy sword. We have the Two of Swords. Wow, that's a cool one. She's blind, has a mask, has a sword right there. Three of Swords. Four of Swords. Resting soldier. I can't wait to work with this deck more closely. I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at these cards. Five of Swords. Before I move on, I want to tell you guys why I bought this deck actually. So on my Patreon, I have a $50 tier, which so far nobody had subscribed to, but now someone did. And in the $50 tier, I actually send out a letter with a real tarot card and suggestions on how to work with a card and some other things in a letter to the person via snail mail, as we say nowadays. And this deck is for that because I needed a new deck to take cards from. So in about 2 weeks or so from uploading this video, or maybe I will upload it later. So anyways, I'm not going to have a complete deck of this ever. This is the only time I have this deck completely. By the end of this month, I'm going to send out the first letter, and I'm really excited to draw the card and send it out to the person and give them some advice and some info on how to work with the card. And I feel like this is a really cool deck to do that with. Here we have the 6 of Swords. I moved on to the next card because it's so unconventional. So I can really go bonkers with my interpretation of how it relates to the traditional tarot and how the person can work with the energy of this specific tarot deck and its specific imagery. 7 of Swords. Ooh, a giant and a small woman hiding a sword. 8 of Swords, a bound woman. Now this is a classical fantasy thing. You have a monster and a woman bound. Yeah, so cool. Oh, whoa, this looks like the same woman, 9 of Swords. Interesting. Then we have the 10 of Swords. I bet there's some cohesive elements that I don't even realize right now. Like maybe there are some images or some people that keep repeating themselves. I will have to look at that. And these are the court cards for the Swords suit. Beautiful as well. The unicorns look so angry, all of them. And this is the back of the cards in case I hadn't shown it right yet. Beautiful as well. I think this deck is super cool because it has this mix of fantasy and sci-fi, to be completely frank with you. And I think that's an awesome, awesome mix. Okay, so this was my unboxing of this deck. Not as quite of a deep dive into the imagery as with some of my other videos, but still, I hope that you enjoyed it. I can always talk more about this if you want me to. Let me know if you want a really deep dive into some of my favorite cards from this deck, maybe the symbolism. Let me know. And yes, I'm also going to link my Patreon below in case you want to be a part of that. There's not just the $50 tier, there's also lower tiers where you get a lot of cool benefits that I create every month. And I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for exploring this deck with me. I hope that you liked it. Tell me if you have a favorite fantasy deck, because I'm always really, really open to fantasy decks, honestly. This was the one I wanted for the longest time, but never allowed myself to buy it, and now I finally have it, and I'm so happy about it, even if I will never have the complete deck, essentially, because I'm sending out the cards to my patrons. But still, I'm happy, you know? It's going to be a cool deck to work with. All right, thank you so much for being here. If you want to dwell here a little longer, you can subscribe. I'll link my Instagram. I'll link my other resources in the description box, and you can talk in the comments if you want to, and blah, blah, blah. I hope that you have the best of days, the best of weeks, and I will see you very, very soon.